This is a review for Exorcist 2, The Heretic, directed by John Boorman, 1977. So I just finished watching this last night, and it has a lot of, I've heard a lot of people say this movie's terrible, and I'd have to agree. It's just a total mess. It's very strange. It's too long too. I was just like, could this movie just end? Um, and there's two directors on it, and I think one of them is the second unit director, but for some reason Boorman just wasn't directing the movie. I don't know why, but so he's unaccredited, but now on IMDb, Rospo Pallenberg has a credit. So very strange. Um, it seems like that they did the right thing. They hired a good director. I think he's a good director. I mean, he directed Deliverance. He directed Excalibur, which is a movie I really like. I really like the Arthurian legend, and I think that's a good telling of that. He did that in 1981. So what did he? Is that his next movie? But I haven't seen a lot of his other movies. So he did a movie called The General. He did a movie called Hope and Glory. Okay. Oh, that kind of looks like that Spielberg movie with young Christian Bale, because that's in the bombings in London, during the war. But yeah, he did Excalibur 2. I mean, he did Exorcist 2, and then a few years later he did Excalibur. He did a movie called The Emerald Forest. Oh, it's Powers Booth. I love Powers Booth. He's such an awesome actor. R.I.P. That sounds like a good movie. So it looks like, I mean, I don't know, we did Zardoz, but I've never seen that actually, but I know it has a cult following. I should check that out. But I think he's an interesting director. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I like Deliverance, I like Excalibur, but this movie is it's a total mess. The synopsis: a teenage girl once possessed by a demon finds that it still lurks within her. Meanwhile, a priest investigates the death of the girl's exorcist. So there's just such bizarre sequences. Like she's in this, and Nurse Ratched is in this from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and it's funny, she's again in a medical setting, except now she's like a psychiatrist, and they put Linda Blair on this machine with this stuff on her head, and then they link her to Nurse Ratched, Louise Fletcher, and like they're communicating with each other through their mind, and it's just so silly and dumb. Like, what are they thinking? And then there's shots of Nurse Ratched and like of Max von Sydow's, like kind of like his ghost almost, like enveloping her head, and it's just a total mess of a movie. I guess they tried to get back, what's his name, Father O'Malley, but he was busy. So they chose another priest who had nothing to do with the original movie. Yeah, William O'Malley, Father Dyer, but he was busy. So they go with this other priest who has nothing to do with the movie, and he's trying to, like, interject himself in there, and I don't know. It's just it's such a mess. Richard Burton, Father Lamont, who I don't know, does an okay job. Um, I mean, I was watching Rambo Ralph's also commentary of the movie too, and he's saying that Richard Burton has a bad alcohol ism. He was a I mean, he was a drunk apparently, and I don't know if you watching the movie, I think you can kind of see that he maybe is drunk. I mean, I don't know, maybe not. It's he did an okay job. It's just the movie's just terrible. Linda Blair said the script was amazing, but then it got rewritten a bunch of times. They had problems with the director, John Boorman, for some reason. Um, so yeah, it's too bad because I like the third movie. Yeah, and then there's these flashback scenes with Reagan possessed, and you can tell it's not Reagan. You can tell it's a double. They didn't even do a good job doing that. And this movie had a bigger budget than the original, I think. And Linda Blair, so this is the trivia, refused to be subjected to the makeup she wore in the first film. In flashback scenes, the possessed Reagan was played by a double, and you can tell. Linda Blair called this one of the big disappointments of my career. Wow, Stanley Kubrick turned down the offer to direct. Yeah, when Sir John Boorman accepted, Kubrick warned him that the only way a sequel to The Exorcist would succeed is if it were to be more graphic and horrific than the original. And this tries to do that, definitely. There's a lot of locusts. I mean, there's some brutal scenes, and the end, like, they go back to the house where the original exorcism took place, and like the house is getting torn apart. You could tell that that cost some money. So like, I guess Kubrick was friends with him, Sir John Boorman, so he's English. I mean, Kubrick's American, but he lived in England, so he I guess he knew him. William Peter Blatty, author of the original novel, reportedly had to stifle his own laughter upon viewing the film at the premiere. Yeah, it's just laughable, and it's just bad, and it's like, just the movie is too long. Oh wow, Linda Blair has said that Richard Burton, yeah, the actor, started out sober but frequently became drunk during the middle and end of filming. She also says that there was tensions were high among the cast. Was I reading that John Boorman likes the movie? Richard Burton openly admitted in interviews that this was a paycheck picture for him. I had a divorce coming up from Elizabeth Taylor. Wow, I needed money for that. Hey, at least he's honest. I always appreciate when actors are like honest about that stuff. Like Michael Caine in Jaws 4. Wow, at the time of this release, this was the most expensive film produced by Warner Brothers. I mean, yeah, look at how much money the original made. So they're like, hey, let's make tons of more money. But I don't know, it's just such a mess. Like, you think that I mean, this is like 4 years after the first one. It's like, get a good script, you know? This is just a mess. I mean, there's so much locust in this movie too. Like, there's like locusts. It's like, yeah, they're everywhere, and it's like, I get it, they're in the Bible, and but I don't know. It's just like, oh man, stop with the locusts. And there's these shots of this mechanical. You can tell it's like a mechanical locust, and it's really close up, and it's flying, and the camera's like following it, and it's kind of a cool concept, but it just looks so silly and fake. So although Pauline Kael hated the original film, is that the woman that she's like a famous review, like a movie reviewer. Is that the woman that Tarantino's gonna make a movie about? Once again, going against the grain. She hated the original film. She loved part two. The film is too condensed and exotic and too deliriously complicated to succeed with most audiences. Yeah, I mean, it's some of it's like, I mean, I don't know. You're like, are these people drunk that are writing it? Like, it's a crazy movie. When it opened, there were accounts of people in the theaters who threw things at the screen, but it's winged camp, a hoary fairy tale gone wild, another in the long history of movie makers' king-size follies. There's enough visual magic in it for a dozen good movies. This is unusual, as most critics despise the movie. Well, Linda Blair was already in the midst of her drug habits and constantly turned up late to shooting, to the point where she actually considered it an achievement that she was only 20 minutes late one day. Oh yeah, and Scorsese likes this movie. Martin Scorsese was one of the few people who liked the film. The picture asks, does great goodness bring upon itself great evil? This goes back to the book of Job. Okay, well, I don't know, Scorsese. I thought it was terrible. This film, along with The Exorcist and Exorcist 2, were serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer's favorite films. That's right, he would always watch this, apparently. Like, even with the guys that he was about to kill, like, he'd watch it with them. One of his surviving victims recalls seeing him watching this film repeatedly in a trance-like state. Wow, that's creepy. So there you go. Serial killers like the movie. Sir John Boorman confessed, the sin I committed was not giving the audience what it wanted in terms of horror. There's this wild beast out there, which is the audience. I created this arena, and I just didn't throw enough Christians into it. Okay. Sir John Boorman was originally offered an opportunity to direct The Exorcist, but passed because he found the script repulsive. Instead, he made Zardoz. Oh, but you made this, and you like this script. Okay. Script of The Exorcist is a masterpiece compared to this. I mean, this movie's a mess. I mean, there's scenes with Darth Vader, James Earl Jones. He's in Africa as like a witch doctor, but you cannot take him seriously at all because he is like he has like cat like whiskers on, kind of like scarification kind of, but he has that on his face, and the priest has to go talk to him, but then it like goes back to New York, and he is also like a scientist with, of course, locusts. There's so many locusts in this movie, and he still has the scarification whiskers, so he's like a giant cat guy. I don't know, it just is so I cannot take him seriously at all. It's like, oh man. Wonder how much they paid him to be on it. On the night of the premiere, the movie was laughed off the screen. Things were tolerable until the synchronizer machine was introduced, and it went straight downhill from there. Yeah, that is ridiculous. It's like their minds are, I mean, like now this has entered like full sci-fi. William Friedkin looked at it and he watched an hour and thought it was as bad as seeing a traffic accident in the streets. It was horrible. It's just a stupid mess made by a wow, man. He calls John Boorman dumb. Oh, come on, is that fair? He made some good movies. Friedkin later stated that the sequel diminished the value of the original and called it one of the worst films I've ever seen. That film was made by a demented mind. Linda Blair claims because of the rewrites, the finished film was nothing like what she agreed to film, and that to this day she doesn't understand what the locusts were supposed to represent. There's so many locusts. I don't know. And then also, like, Ellen Bernstein isn't in it, but Kitty Wynn is, who is her assistant. But at the end of the first Exorcist, she doesn't go with her, so she's living with Linda Blair in this, like, I mean, very expensive penthouse. But you know, she was very rich, her mom. So I don't know. But it's just weird. She's not in the movie, but Kitty Wynn is, and she's like basically kind of like an older sister to her, and she's living in this penthouse with her, and I don't know. You could just tell that they couldn't get Ellen Bernstein for some reason, so they're like, "Oh, we'll get her assistant," even though she didn't go with her at the end of the first movie. So it doesn't really make sense even. But I don't know. Original cut of the movie was over 3 hours long. Oh wow, that sounds terrible. Boorman was unhappy with William Goddard's script and asked Goddard to do a rewrite, incorporating ideas from Rospo Pallenberg. Goddard refused, and so the script was subsequently rewritten by Pallenberg and Boorman. Goddard's script was being constantly rewritten as the film was shooting, with the filmmakers uncertain as to how the story would end. Linda Blair recalls it was a really good script at first, and after everybody signed on, they rewrote it 5 times and it ended up nothing like the same movie. Oh, that's too bad. Kitty Wynn was very hesitant to return to her role as Sharon for the first movie. She found making the original film very traumatic, and reliving the memories of it caused her a great deal of emotional stress filming the sequel. John Voight originally agreed to play Father Lamont before dropping out over concerns with the screenplay. Oh man, I think that would have made it better, honestly. He felt the script was flawed from a Catholic point of view. He made some considerable script revisions, but none were used and departed the project. David Carradine and Jack Nicholson were considered to play the part. The studio rejected Carradine due to an ongoing dispute with him over his Kung Fu TV series, while Nicholson's salary demands were too high. Yeah, I see that. The film was rushed into production because 20th Century Fox released the Exorcist-inspired horror film The Omen, which got good reviews and was a smash hit. This inspired Warner Brothers to put out a sequel, even though the writer William Peter Blatty, the director William Friedkin, and the star Ellen Bernstein said they were all not interested. That's just weird. What? Because The Omen? I've seen that. That's a decent movie. I don't think it's amazing, but way better than this, that's for sure. Linda Blair claims Richard Burton read off cue cards for several scenes throughout the movie. Reportedly, executives at Fox were panicking at the time because Warner Brothers was making the star-studded sequel to a massive hit film, but all Fox was working on to complete with it was a low-budget science fiction film with a cast of mainly unknowns and an inexperienced director. That film was Star Wars. When they were released, Exorcist II grossed $5.8 million during its first weekend, which qualified as the biggest two-day opening in Warner Bros. History, but then abruptly tanked at the box office as a result of the negative word of mouth and reviews. Star Wars, of course, became a global phenomenon. Oh, wow. So it kind of released... That's right, 77. So... But, I don't know. I think that's about it. It's just a bad movie. Check it out if you're a fan of the first and you just want to watch how bad it is, really, like the train wreck that it is. Or just don't, because, you know, you don't want to spoil the first. I don't think it ruins the first or anything. I mean, you can just ignore it. To me, that it's just, there's the first Exorcist and there's Exorcist 3. And I guess I'll watch Exorcist Believer eventually, but the movie got terrible reviews. I think it looked pretty bad. So, but Sir John Boorman was attracted to the film because the idea of making a metaphysical thriller greatly appealed to my psyche. Okay, well, it's bad. So, but if you haven't seen Deliverance or Excalibur, check them out. They're good Boorman movies. But yeah, bad movie, terrible sequel. So, but yeah, that's about it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and that's it.